Welcome to HOA Citation Circus. Keep your phone ready for this one. Do not touch my clipboard. Catherine Ramirez screamed it across the driveway while waving a printed minutes packet like it was a warrant, her bright phone case catching the sun as she jabbed it toward my face. She claimed she could create a violation faster than I could read the rules, and judging by the stack of notices already zip-tied to my mailbox post, she was not exaggerating. A rideshare driver sat in his sedan near the curb, window cracked, rolling his eyes as Catherine announced she had all day, and so did her fine meter. I work home warranty claims, which means I read fine print for a living, and I know when someone is improvising consequences. Briarstone Commons Association in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, is the kind of community where the board claims the rules are clear but will not show you the page, and Catherine Ramirez, the rules enforcement chair, had just accused me of owing a reinspection fee for an inspection that never happened. I needed my home insurance stable, no claims, no liens, and she was pushing me toward a disaster I could not afford. Catherine's voice climbed another octave. Your camera does not matter. My minutes are the truth. She held the packet between us like a shield, her gray windbreaker already darkening under the arms in the heat. I tightened my grip on my pen and kept my face flat. A tow truck had been circling the neighborhood for 20 minutes, and Catherine kept glancing at her phone like she was coordinating dispatch. The threat was immediate: hook my car within the hour, tow first and ask questions never, and add another invented enforcement surcharge to the lien paperwork she was already drafting. I stayed polite, because polite makes bullies careless. I had a package of photos in my truck, second copy ready for the HOA attorney, proving multiple homeowners did the same thing without enforcement. I was not showing it yet. Catherine was escalating too fast, and every word she said on camera was another nail. Catherine slammed the packet against my clipboard. She had a tiny clicker counter clipped to her waistband, the kind you use to count speakers at a meeting, and she clicked it twice like she was logging my refusal to cooperate. The noise was small and petty and somehow made everything worse. She leaned in close enough that I could smell her coffee breath. I have all day, and so does my fine meter. I did not move. The rideshare driver's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror, and he shook his head slowly. Catherine did not notice. She was too busy pulling a second notice from her stack, this one printed on pink paper with a backdated timestamp that put the violation 3 days before I even received the first warning. She held it up like a trophy. This is not the first time Briarstone Commons had a records problem. 2 years ago, a batch of homeowners got hit with identical violation notices for shed placement, and the complaints all used the same template language, same typos, same margins. The board claimed it was a software glitch and issued refunds, but the complaints kept coming. No one ever figured out who was behind it. The case went cold. I moved into the neighborhood 6 months ago because the price was right and the commute worked, and I thought the HOA drama was behind us. I was wrong. Catherine's latest invention was a complaint log entry that was obviously written in her voice, full of phrases like failure to comply and willful disregard, words she used in every email and every hearing. She had submitted it under a fake homeowner name, and the entry claimed I had refused a courtesy inspection that never happened. When I asked for the inspection report, the management company said the records were lost. When I uploaded proof to the portal showing I had submitted the compliance photos 2 weeks early, the upload disappeared. Catherine claimed the portal audit page was unreliable and charged me a search fee to look for records she had already deleted. I pulled up the screenshot on my phone, the one showing my upload timestamp and file name before it vanished. Catherine glanced at it and laughed. That proves nothing. The system logs are not admissible. I wanted to ask her where she got her law degree, but the tow truck turned the corner again, and Catherine's phone buzzed. She answered it without stepping away, her voice loud enough for the rideshare driver to hear every word. Yes, the red work shirt. No, he will not move it voluntarily. Hook it now. The tow driver climbed out, clipboard in hand, and I stepped between him and my car. I am recording this. You are being directed to tow a vehicle with no valid violation notice and no hearing. He stopped. His eyes went from me to Catherine to the rideshare driver who was now filming on his own phone. The driver sighed and looked at Catherine. "Ma'am, I need the signed authorization and the hearing minutes." Catherine's face went red. "I am the authorization. I am Rules Enforcement Chair and I have the minutes right here." She waved the packet again, and the tow driver shook his head. "I need the board president's signature and a case number. I am not hooking anything without it." Catherine's voice cracked. "This is a compliance emergency. You are contracted to enforce on demand." The driver pulled out his phone and made a call. After 30 seconds, he nodded and hung up. "My dispatch says there is no open case number for this address. I am leaving." He climbed back into the truck, and Catherine screamed after him, calling him incompetent and threatening to cancel the contract. The rideshare driver started his engine and pulled away slowly, still filming through the passenger window. I turned back to Catherine. She was breathing hard, the clicker counter in her hand, her finger frozen over the button. I kept my voice calm. "You just tried to commit an illegal tow on camera. I have 3 witnesses and a recorded call to dispatch. If you want to keep going, we can call the county deputy and see what he thinks." Catherine's jaw worked, but no sound came out. She turned and walked toward the clubhouse, her pink bucket hat bobbing with every step. The minutes packet clutched to her chest like a security blanket. I had won the driveway fight, but I knew it was not over. Catherine did not retreat unless she was planning something worse. I called my ally, a board member named Greg who had been leaking internal emails to a small group of homeowners for months. He was fed up with Catherine's enforcement games and the way the board president, a retired banker named Cliff, rubber-stamped everything she wanted. Greg answered on the second ring. "Did she try the tow?" "Yes. The driver refused without a case number. I need to see the complaint log and the reinspection policy." Greg paused. "The policy does not exist. Catherine invented it last month and Cliff approved it in a closed session. No vote, no notice. I have the email thread. She is also claiming your compliance photos were never uploaded, but the portal audit log shows they were there for 6 days before someone deleted them. Send me everything." I stayed polite in my voice, but my hand was shaking. If Catherine had deleted my records and then charged me for searching for them, that was fraud. If she was doing it to other homeowners, it was a pattern. Greg's email arrived 10 minutes later. It included the internal thread where Catherine asked the management company to remove non-compliant uploads without homeowner notification, a draft policy document with no adoption date, and a spreadsheet of reinspection fees tied to complaints that all used the same template. The column headers were Catherine's, and the fees ranged from $50 to $300, all marked as collected but none of them tied to actual inspections. I printed the emails and put them in a binder with the portal audit screenshot, the backdated notice, and the rideshare driver's contact info. I was not going to another meeting without a plan. Catherine sent the next escalation that evening. A certified letter arrived, dirt-smudged corners like it had been sitting in her car for days, and she appeared on my porch almost immediately, like she had been waiting for the mail truck. The envelope contained a lien threat that included bogus legal fees and an invented enforcement surcharge of $500 for non-compliance with the reinspection process. The letter claimed I had 14 days to pay or the HOA would file a lien and pursue collection through their attorney. I opened the door with my phone recording. Catherine smiled. "I have all day, and so does my fine meter." She clicked her counter once, slow and deliberate, her eyes locked on mine. I held up the binder. "I have the emails. I have the portal audit log. I have the complaint templates. I know you deleted my upload and charged me to search for it. I know the reinspection policy was never adopted. I know you have done this to at least 12 other homeowners in the last year." Catherine's smile did not move, but her hand tightened on the counter. "Your camera does not matter. My minutes are the truth." She turned and walked toward her car, the certified envelope still in my hand, her phone already at her ear. I went to the Coeur d'Alene Police Department the next morning. The deputy at the desk listened to my summary, watched the tow truck video, and flipped through the binder. He took notes and asked for copies of the emails. When Catherine showed up 10 minutes later, unannounced and uninvited, trying to file a countercomplaint for harassment, the deputy told her to step back and wait her turn. Catherine tried to talk over him, her voice climbing, her bright phone case flashing as she gestured. The deputy raised one hand. "Ma'am, step back. You are not filing anything until I finish with this gentleman." Catherine's face went purple, but she moved to the far side of the lobby, her clicker counter clicking furiously in her hand. The deputy finished his notes and handed me a case number. "If she files the lien, bring this report to the hearing. If she contacts you directly about payment, document it and call me." He looked past me toward Catherine. "Ma'am, you can come up now." I left before Catherine reached the desk, but I heard her start talking, her voice loud and indignant, and the deputy's calm reply. "One moment, ma'am. Let me finish writing." Greg called that afternoon. "Cliff scheduled an emergency board meeting for tomorrow night. Catherine is pushing for a formal enforcement action against you, and she has a packet ready. You need to be there." "I will be there. And I am bringing copies for everyone." The meeting was at the clubhouse, the same building where Catherine had tried to block me from entering 2 weeks earlier. I arrived early with 2 binders, one for me and one for the board, plus a third copy in a sealed envelope addressed to the HOA attorney. The clubhouse front steps were narrow and the door was locked until exactly 6 p.m., so homeowners clustered on the walkway, murmuring and checking phones. Catherine arrived at 5:58, her pink bucket hat low over her eyes, the minutes packet under one arm and her clicker counter clipped to her belt. She saw me and stopped. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I held up the binder. "Let's go inside." She moved to block the door, her body angled across the frame, her phone case catching the lobby light. "You are not getting in there with that. Your lies are not welcome." I stayed calm. I have the same right to attend as anyone. "If you do not move, I will call the deputy and show him this video of you obstructing access." A neighbor behind me, an older woman named Diane, cleared her throat. "Catherine, let him in. We all want to hear what he has to say." Catherine's hand twitched toward her counter, but she stepped aside. The door unlocked and we filed into the meeting room. Cliff sat at the head table, his reading glasses perched on his nose, a gavel resting beside a stack of folders. Catherine took the seat beside him and immediately started whispering, her hand on his arm, her face urgent. I sat in the front row and placed both binders on my lap. Greg caught my eye from the back and nodded once. Cliff called the meeting to order and clicked through the agenda on a projector screen. The first item was my enforcement case. Catherine stood and walked to the podium, her minutes packet open, her voice steady and professional. This homeowner failed to comply with a courtesy reinspection, refused to pay the associated search fee, and uploaded fraudulent compliance photos to the portal. I am recommending a lien filing and immediate suspension of access to common areas until payment is received. I raised my hand. Cliff looked at Catherine, then at me. "You will have a chance to respond." Catherine continued, "The portal audit log is unreliable and cannot be used as evidence. The homeowners claim that I deleted his records as defamatory and I am considering legal action." I stood without waiting for Cliff to call on me. "I have the portal audit log, and it shows my upload existed for 6 days before it was deleted. I have internal emails where Catherine requested the management company remove non-compliant uploads without homeowner notification. I have a spreadsheet of reinspection fees tied to complaints that all use the same template, including complaints filed under fake homeowner names. I have a deputy's case report documenting an illegal tow attempt. And I have a recorded phone call where Catherine directed the tow driver to hook my car without a case number or board authorization." The room went silent. Catherine's face drained of color, and she looked at Cliff. "He is lying. Those documents are fabricated." I walked to the head table and placed the first binder in front of Cliff. Page 3 is the email thread. Page 7 is the spreadsheet. Page 12 is the portal audit screenshot. Page 15 is the deputy's report. I have a second copy here for the board attorney, sealed and ready for delivery. Cliff opened the binder and flipped to page 3. His face changed as he read, his mouth tightening into a thin line. He looked at Catherine. Did you request the management company delete homeowner uploads? Catherine's hand went to her clicker counter, her finger hovering over the button. That was a compliance measure. Uploads that did not meet the standards were removed to avoid confusion. Cliff's voice was flat. Did you notify the homeowners before deleting their files? Catherine hesitated. The policy does not require notification. Cliff flipped to page 7 and read the spreadsheet. His jaw clenched. Did you collect reinspection fees without conducting inspections? Catherine's voice climbed. Those fees are for administrative processing. The inspections are implied. Cliff closed the binder and looked at me. You said you have a sealed copy for our attorney? Yes. I can deliver it tonight, or you can send someone to pick it up. Cliff pushed the binder toward Catherine. This meeting is adjourned pending legal review. Catherine, you are suspended from enforcement duties effective immediately. The board will schedule a special session within 2 weeks to address these findings. Catherine's mouth opened and closed, her face red, her hand squeezing the clicker counter until her knuckles went white. She grabbed the minutes packet and her phone and walked out of the room without another word. The neighbors erupted in whispers. Diane leaned toward me. How long have you been building that case? Since the day she tried to tow my car. Greg met me in the parking lot after the meeting. You just burned her entire enforcement operation to the ground. Cliff is furious. The attorney is going to demand a full audit, and when they find the fake complaints and the deleted records, the liability is going to force a settlement. The audit took 3 weeks. The HOA hired a third-party firm to review every enforcement action Catherine had initiated in the last 2 years. They found 23 deleted portal uploads, 16 fake complaint log entries, and over $8,000 in reinspection fees collected without corresponding inspections. The complaints all used the same template, and the timestamps showed they had been backdated to create the appearance of repeat violations. Catherine tried to claim the templates were a time-saving measure and the deletions were accidental, but the email thread made it clear she had requested the deletions deliberately and had coached the management company on how to avoid leaving a trail. The board attorney advised immediate mediation with a neutral third party to avoid a class action lawsuit. Catherine refused mediation at first, insisting it was an easement issue, and the recorded plat disproved it. She stood in the clubhouse lobby with a new set of documents, claiming the property lines were ambiguous and the violations were justified under a shared access clause. I had the recorded plat pulled from the county records office, and it showed no easement, no shared access, and no ambiguity. When I handed the plat copy to the mediator during the first session, Catherine's face went white. The mediator, a retired judge named Harrison, flipped through the plat and looked at Catherine. This document contradicts your entire enforcement theory. Do you have any evidence to support your easement claim? Catherine stammered. The board president told me it was an easement. Harrison looked at Cliff. Did you provide Miss Ramirez with a legal opinion stating this was an easement? Cliff shook his head. I told her to check the plat before filing anything. Harrison closed the folder. Miss Ramirez, your claims are not supported by the recorded documents. I am recommending you retract your enforcement actions in writing and cooperate with the restitution process. Catherine's voice broke. I was protecting the neighborhood. The rules are clear. Harrison's tone was firm. The rules were never properly adopted. The reinspection policy does not exist in the official record. You charged fees for services you did not provide. You deleted homeowner records and then charged them to search for those same records. You filed complaints under fake names. This is not rule enforcement. This is fraud. Catherine signed the retraction 2 days later, her handwriting shaky, her bright phone case sitting silent on the table. The board approved a restitution plan that refunded every bogus fee, and the management company sent letters to all affected homeowners with apology statements and refund checks. Greg called me the night the refund letters went out. "You did it. Catherine is done. Cliff is stepping down at the end of his term, and there is a board election challenge coming. The neighborhood group chat is organizing a slate of candidates who actually want transparent rules." I leaned back in my chair and looked at the binder on my desk, the one I had carried to the police station, the meeting, and the mediation. I stayed polite, because polite makes bullies careless. Catherine had escalated so fast and so recklessly that she had built my case for me, one violation at a time. The election happened 6 weeks later. Catherine did not run. Cliff endorsed a reform slate, and the new board president was Diane, the neighbor who had told Catherine to let me into the meeting. The first policy change was a rule that required all enforcement actions to include documented inspections, written notice, and a 30-day appeal window. The second policy change banned backdated notices and required all complaint log entries to include the complainant's verified identity. The refund wave hit the neighborhood like a storm. Homeowners who had paid bogus fees 2 years ago got checks in the mail, and the group chat exploded with screenshots and thank you messages. Catherine's name became a punchline. Someone posted a meme of her clicker counter with the caption counting her mistakes. I got my refund check 3 days later, along with a formal apology letter from the board. The amount was more than I expected, because the audit had found additional fees Catherine had charged under vague categories like administrative overhead and compliance review. The total came to $1,200. I deposited the check and sent a copy of the deposit receipt to Greg with a single line, "Case closed." Greg replied immediately, "Not quite. The HOA attorney found something else in the audit. Catherine was using the reinspection fees to pay for personal expenses. She submitted reimbursement requests for office supplies and mileage that matched the fee deposits almost exactly. The board is considering a referral to the district attorney." I sat back and stared at my phone. If Catherine had been skimming HOA funds, that was embezzlement. That was criminal. That was the kind of thing that did not go away with a retraction letter and a mediation settlement. The district attorney opened an investigation 2 weeks later. Catherine hired a lawyer and stopped attending board meetings. The group chat buzzed with speculation, but no one had details. Greg told me the attorney had advised Catherine to stay silent and cooperate, and that the DA was reviewing financial records going back 3 years. I did not hear anything for months. Then, one morning, Greg sent me a news link. Catherine Ramirez, former Rules Enforcement Chair for Briarstone Commons Association, had pled guilty to 1 count of theft by deception and 1 count of fraudulent schemes. She was sentenced to probation, community service, and full restitution to the HOA and affected homeowners. The article included a quote from the DA. "HOA board members hold a position of trust, and when that trust is violated for personal gain, there are consequences." The neighborhood moved on. Diane's board implemented quarterly financial audits and required all enforcement actions to go through a 3-member review panel. The group chat shifted from complaint threads to event planning and landscaping tips. Catherine's house went up for sale 6 months after the sentencing, and a young couple with a dog moved in. I kept the binder on my desk for a while, a reminder that staying polite and building a paper trail works better than shouting. Eventually, I moved it to a file box in the garage, next to old tax returns and warranty paperwork. Greg texted me one last time a year later. The board just approved a new policy requiring all records to be stored on a third-party platform with full audit trails and homeowner access. No more disappearing uploads. No more fake complaints. No more Catherines. I replied, "About time." He sent back a single emoji, a clipboard. I laughed and set my phone down. The case was closed, the cold case was solved, and Briarstone Commons Association had learned a lesson the hard way. I stayed polite, I built the evidence, and I let Catherine's own rules bury her. If you want more HOA chaos, investigations, and satisfying takedowns, hit subscribe and drop a like. The thing about cold cases is that they do not stay cold if you are willing to dig. Catherine thought the old violations and the deleted records were buried too deep to matter, but every fake complaint, every backdated notice, and every deleted upload left a trail. The portal audit log was the key. Once I had the screenshot showing my file existed and then disappeared, everything else clicked into place. The emails Greg leaked proved intent. The spreadsheet proved the pattern. The deputy's report proved the illegal tow. The recorded plat proved Catherine's easement lie was fiction. I did not need to shout. I did not need to threaten. I just needed to show up with the evidence and let her own words condemn her. When she said your camera does not matter, my minutes are the truth, she was banking on the board, never questioning her version. But the minutes were not the truth. The minutes were her shield, and the moment I pulled the recorded plat and the portal audit log, that shield cracked. The funny thing is, Catherine could have avoided all of it. If she had just let the tow driver leave the first time, if she had not escalated to a lien threat, if she had not deleted my records and charged me to search for them, the cold case would have stayed cold. But she was so convinced she could bully her way through that she kept escalating, and every escalation gave me another piece of proof. The rideshare driver's footage ended up in the mediation file. The deputy's report ended up in the DA's case. The emails ended up in the board attorney's fraud summary. Catherine built the case against herself, one violation at a time. The hardest part was not the investigation. It was not the mediation. It was not even the police report. The hardest part was walking past Catherine's house every day and knowing she was inside, planning her next move, convinced she was untouchable. The hardest part was sitting in that meeting and listening to her lie to Cliff's face, knowing I had the emails in my lap, but waiting for the right moment to drop them. Timing mattered. If I had shown the binder too early, Catherine would have had time to spin a story. If I had waited too long, she would have filed the lien and forced me into a hearing where the deck was stacked. I had to wait until she committed, until she stood at that podium and lied under oath in front of witnesses, and then I had to drop the evidence in a way that left no room for doubt. Cliff's face when he read the emails was the moment I knew I had won. He went from skeptical to furious in the span of 3 pages, and by the time he reached the spreadsheet, he was ready to suspend Catherine on the spot. The board attorney's reaction was even better. When I handed him the sealed copy, he did not even open it in the room. He just nodded and said, "I will review this tonight and advise the board tomorrow." The next day, Greg told me the attorney had called an emergency conference with Cliff and recommended immediate suspension, full audit, and mediation to avoid litigation. The attorney knew what the emails meant. He knew Catherine had created a liability nightmare, and he knew the only way out was to cut her loose and settle fast. Catherine tried to fight it. She hired her own attorney and threatened to sue me for defamation, but her lawyer took one look at the portal audit log and the deputy's report and told her to drop it. She tried to claim the reinspection fees were legitimate, but the audit showed she had never conducted a single inspection. She tried to claim the complaints were filed by real homeowners, but the timestamps and the identical templates proved they were fake. Every move she made after the meeting just dug the hole deeper. The mediation was supposed to be a settlement negotiation, but it turned into a confession session. Harrison, the retired judge, did not let her off easy. He made her walk through every fake complaint, every deleted upload, and every bogus fee, and he made her explain why she thought it was acceptable. Catherine could not explain it. She fell back on the same excuse over and over: I was protecting the neighborhood. But the recorded plat and the portal audit log proved she was not protecting anything. She was inventing violations to justify fees, and she was pocketing the money. The restitution checks went out, and the neighborhood started to heal. People who had been afraid to challenge Catherine's enforcement actions started speaking up in the group chat. Stories came out about bogus fines, deleted records, and threats that sounded exactly like what I had experienced. One homeowner said Catherine had tried to tow his truck 3 times in a month, each time with a different violation, and he had paid the fees just to make it stop. Another said Catherine had deleted his landscaping compliance photos and then charged him $200 to re-inspect, even though he had never changed anything. The pattern was clear. Catherine had been running a shakedown operation for years, and the board had either ignored it or enabled it. Cliff's resignation statement was careful and lawyered, but reading between the lines it was obvious he knew what Catherine was doing and had looked the other way. The new board, led by Diane, made it clear that era was over. The policy changes were not flashy, but they were effective. The third-party records platform meant no one could delete uploads without leaving a trail. The 3-member review panel meant no single person could approve an enforcement action. The 30-day appeal window meant homeowners had time to gather evidence and challenge bogus violations. The ban on backdated notices meant Catherine's favorite trick was off the table. The group chat celebrated every change. Someone posted a screenshot of the new portal interface with the caption, "Finally, transparency." Someone else posted a photo of their refund check with a thank you note to the reform board. The energy shifted from anger and fear to optimism and community. I did not post much. I stayed quiet and watched the neighborhood rebuild. But when Diane announced the election results and the new policies, I sent her a private message. "Thank you for stepping up. This is what leadership looks like." She replied immediately, "Thank you for not giving up. You gave us the roadmap." Greg called me the night Catherine's house sold. The new owners are nice, young couple, no HOA drama, just trying to fix up the yard. They asked me if the neighborhood was stable, and I told them it is now. I asked him if Catherine had said anything before she left. He laughed. She did not say goodbye. She just listed the house, packed up, and disappeared. Last I heard, she moved out of state. Good riddance. The investigation, the mediation, the restitution, and the election challenge flipped the power dynamic completely. Catherine went from untouchable rules enforcement chair to convicted fraudster in less than a year, and the HOA went from a toxic top-down nightmare to a transparent, accountable community organization. The cold case was not just solved, it was weaponized. Every fake complaint Catherine had filed, every record she had deleted, every fee she had collected became evidence in a fraud case that ended her reign and forced systemic reform. The funniest karma moment came during the mediation, when Harrison made Catherine explain her easement claim. She insisted it was an easement issue and the recorded plat would disprove my case, so confident that she had not even looked at the plat herself. When I handed the plat copy to Harrison and he confirmed there was no easement, no shared access, and no ambiguity, Catherine's face went from smug to panicked in seconds. She had spent weeks threatening me with that easement claim, and it turned out to be completely fictional. Her own bluff became the proof she was lying. The board agreed to mediation with a neutral third party. Catherine was forced to retract her claim in writing, and the HOA implemented policies that made it impossible for another Catherine to weaponize the rules. The payback was not revenge. It was accountability. It was making the system work the way it was supposed to work, and watching the bully get buried by her own lies. I kept the second copy of the photo package in my truck for months, just in case. I never needed it. The first copy, delivered to the HOA attorney, was enough. The attorney showed it to the board, and the board saw the selective enforcement pattern immediately. Multiple homeowners had the same setup, the same violation, but only I got the notices. The photos proved Catherine was targeting me specifically, and that opened the door to the discrimination and retaliation claims that made the board settle fast. The tow threat was the pressure cooker. Catherine was so sure she could hook my car and force me to pay that she coordinated with the driver in front of witnesses. When the driver refused and left, she lost her leverage and her credibility. The rideshare driver's footage showed her screaming at dispatch, and the deputy's report showed her trying to file a bogus counter-complaint. Every escalation made her look worse, and every piece of evidence I gathered made my case stronger. The final showdown on the clubhouse front steps was not dramatic in the way Catherine wanted. She tried to block me from entering, tried to use her clipboard and her minutes packet like weapons, but the neighbors behind me were not having it. Diane spoke up, and Catherine had to step aside. Inside the meeting, Catherine tried to use her authority voice and her clicker counter to control the room. But the binder in my lap was a bomb, and the moment I opened it, her entire operation collapsed. Cliff suspended her on the spot. The attorney advised mediation. The mediator forced the retraction. The audit found the embezzlement. The DA charged her. The board reformed. The neighborhood healed. And I got my refund, my cleared record, and my peace. The cold case is closed. The HOA is fixed. Catherine is gone. And I learned that staying polite, building the paper trail, and letting the bully bury herself works every time. I hope your night is calm.